Good evening, and thank you for joining us here on 15 Minutes. I'm Joe McNamara. Tonight's leading story, a local company takes a major stand on workplace harassment and discrimination. For more on this corporate quid pro quo, let's turn it over to Sydney Cornell.
Ask any corporate spokesperson for their company's position on workplace harassment or discrimination, and you're usually met with a song and dance that feels like a High School Musical production. Discrimination in the workplace occurs when one person is treated differently than other employees. When a manager is deciding to hire, promote, even terminate an employee based on their gender, nationality, financial status, religion, sexual orientation, or anything else that would have no bearing on an employee performing a job. Not only is this morally wrong, it's also against the law in the United States. We were pleasantly surprised when we spoke to local favorites Now Hospitality about workplace discrimination.
A fun and open atmosphere is definitely part of the company and our industry, but we also pride ourselves on a culture of acceptance and inclusion. Discrimination of any kind doesn't fit into who we are as a company, and we don't tolerate it. In fact, this approach positively tends to come up quite often in our employee surveys as to why they stay longer with us.
To the brand's credit, every employee we openly talked with at the organization validated that discrimination did not exist there. So Now Hospitality is doing a great job on that front. However, harassment is another potential workplace issue. Like discrimination, this can also be confusing for some people, as there are two different types of harassment. There's quid pro quo and hostile work environment. Most companies have written policies around these issues, but once again, here at Now Hospitality, these policies seem much more than just words. We talked with one particular employee, let's call her Maria, who's been with the company for 3 years now. She was ready to take her career to the next level, but after submitting her application for an open management position, she was met with a shocking response.
One of the managers responsible for making the decision about the promotion caught up with me after work and told me that he was pretty sure I had the skills to do the job. But before he promoted anyone, he liked to make sure that they were good at working intimately with each other if I knew what he meant. I didn't need the finger quotes to pick up on his double meaning. I knew what he was getting at.
But Maria wasn't about to take this kind of harassment lightly.
What did I do? The next day, I told the general manager what happened. I mean, sure, I wanted the promotion, but if that's what it took, no thanks. That's totally against Now Hospitality's values. Plus, it's just wrong, you know?
According to the legal definition, this type of harassment is called quid pro quo, which means this for that. It occurs in the workplace when an employee's response to an unwelcome sexual advance, request for sexual favor, or any other behavior of a sexual nature is used as a basis for any decision affecting the terms or conditions of their employment. As soon as management became aware of the situation, they took action quickly.
After following our internal procedures, we immediately took the course of action that we determined was appropriate. Harassment and discrimination of any kind is a serious offense and can result in disciplinary action up to and including termination. Our position on this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone who works here. It's communicated in our zero tolerance posters in every restaurant's break room and in the employee handbook, which we cover in depth on day one and in our yearly refreshers.
I've got to admit, I was really nervous about telling anyone about what happened. I know from my training that a manager can't retaliate against me for making a complaint about this, so I definitely wasn't scared about something happening to me for reporting it. But I was afraid that people would treat me differently if they thought I got someone in trouble. But everyone was really professional about it. In the end, I know I did the right thing.
So Joe, you can see that this particular company took a hardline stance on these important issues and did the right things to create a healthy and safe work environment. From the headquarters of Now Hospitality, this is Sydney Cornell.
Thanks, Sydney. Appropriate behavior in the workplace is always a hot topic in the headlines. But now, with social networking sites such as Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube a part of our lives. Online environments exist where harassment and discrimination can occur. Changes in technology have moved us from text messages that make us LOL to some that have left their unsuspecting victims saying OMG. Here to talk with us about how to keep the workplace appropriate is our 15 Minutes legal consultant, Catherine Williams. Thank you so much for being here, Catherine.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
Also joining us today is Scott Olson, office manager of the popular documentary, The Company. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be here, Joe. Always a pleasure.
Okay, let's go ahead and begin with just...
Excuse me, Joe. Catherine, I've got a question for you. What is all this squid pro row talk?
I think you mean quid pro quo, Scott?
Potato. Anyways, I know I'm a manager, but I see myself more as a peer when it comes to my employees. Let's say for a minute I'm not the guy who makes decisions about their careers. Things like who gets hired or who gets fired or whether we're open or closed on important American holidays like Boxing Day or Cinco de Mayo. Anyways, if I'm not the manager, can I still quid pro quo someone?
So you're asking if you have to be a manager or be in a position of authority to be guilty of quid pro quo harassment?
Exactly.
Well, technically, yes. Only supervisors or managers can commit quid pro quo harassment. But that's not the only kind of prohibited workplace harassment there is. There are other ways that someone can create an uncomfortable environment.
So you're saying that employees can harass one another even if they're on the same level?
Absolutely, Joe. And it's actually much more common than you would think. Employees at any level, vendors, and sometimes even guests and clients of your business can be guilty of the other type of harassment, hostile work environment.
Whoa, let me stop you right there. I saw the movie Hostel a few years ago, and if your work environment is anything like that place, you've got bigger problems than harassment. I mean, Joe, they don't even have room service or pools in hostels.
Well, you're right about that, Scott. But in this case, a hostile working environment is one that unreasonably interferes with an employee's ability to do their job, or an environment that's intimidating or offensive.
Catherine, people wouldn't create this type of work environment intentionally, but you say it's more common than we might think. What usually causes things to get out of hand?
Well, the truth is, quid pro quo harassment comes with a pretty straightforward definition, but hostile work environment harassment usually has to be evaluated on an individual basis. Let me give you an example. Let's say that when I got into work this morning, Joe mentioned that he thought that this color of purple really brings out my eyes. Now, by itself, this comment doesn't really create a hostile work environment. But let's say that this is the third time this week that Joe has complimented my outfit, and I had already told him that though I appreciate the kind words, they're a little over the top, they make me feel uncomfortable, and that they need to stop.
Oh, snap. Now Joe's a harasser.
In that case, Joe's behavior could be considered harassment.
Even if I was just trying to be nice.
Even if your intentions are good. If someone has told you to stop doing something and you continue, it can be hostile work environment harassment.
So what other types of behavior should we avoid in the workplace?
Well, a hostile work environment can be created by a lot of different behaviors. Offensive jokes or insults, excessive flirting, comments about a person's body or sex life, repeated invitations for dates, inappropriate touching, hugging, or kissing. The list can get pretty long. The most important thing to remember is that if someone tells you that your behavior is making them uncomfortable, you need to stop.
Okay, Debbie Downer. I don't know how we took this turn towards Negativeville, but to me, it sounds like you're saying there absolutely should be no having fun at work. I mean, I hear some countries are close to perfecting the whole robot thing, so maybe we should all just start hiring them. I mean, you never heard George Jetson telling Rosie to tone down the inappropriate touching, or Counselor Troy telling Data to stop the compliments, right? I mean, is this the society we're becoming?
Well, I'm not exactly sure who Rosie or Data is, but I'm certainly not saying that you can't have fun at work. It's just important we all understand that not everyone's definition of what's fun and what's funny is always the same. If what you do at work for fun is making someone else uncomfortable, then how fun is it really?
Okay, let me throw a hypothetical situation at you. Let's say that you and I have been working together for a couple of months, and since day one, you have been irresistibly attracted to me. It's my self-confidence and my physique and my musky scent mix of body spray and anti-dandruff shampoo. You've been pestering me for a date every day, and I keep turning you down. No, not because I'm not interested, but because I just got out of a serious relationship and have fallen on some pretty rocky times personally, and I've had to move back in with my parents. But you're a persistent little vixen. No matter how many times I turn you down and ask you to back off, you seem to think that no means yes, and that unfriending you on Facebook means please text me instead. And now I can't think at work or do my job well because you stress me out. I'm at the end of my rope, Catherine. Tell me, what can I do? What should I do?
Well, Scott, in this highly hypothetical situation, you've done the right thing so far. You've told me that my behavior is making you uncomfortable and asked me to stop. The fact that I'm continuing means that you need to tell a manager about what's going on and allow them to deal with the problem. Once they feel the issue has been taken care of, they will follow up with you to make sure that you're comfortable with their solution.
That sounds reasonable. Whew. I feel better about this whole thing now. I guess I just needed to talk to somebody about it. I hope this doesn't make things awkward between us. You want to hug it out?
How about we stick with a handshake?
Well, that's it for the special edition of 15 Minutes. Tune in next week when we discuss workplace safety. Until then, I'm Joe McNamara. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much for joining.